So I thought that I was done with the Daniel Penny story. I thought I was done talking about Jordan Neely, but then I started re-examining the facts post the reaction from organizations like Black Lives Matter and family members looking to cash in on the death of Jordan Neely, as well as other statements from left-wing activists talking about how we should have shown sympathy to Jordan Neely, and I started to get really pissed off. I started to get really annoyed because essentially what happened to Jordan Neely throughout the course of his life is that all these different various systems and all these different various people weren't there for him. They didn't support him, and when those things failed, they were nowhere to be found. But for some reason, Daniel Penny is supposed to be held accountable for all of their failures. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to break down not just this threat against white people from the founder of Black Lives Matter New York, which is ridiculous and absurd, but the whole story surrounding Jordan Neely and why all of these people need to shut up, if I'm being perfectly honest. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
Just like everybody else seeks justice on their own, just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Right.
So you didn't just mishear that. That is the founder of Black Lives Matter New York, who calls Daniel Penny a murderer and says he's a murderous vigilante, saying that we need more black vigilantes because white people are killing us just for being loud, so maybe we gotta do something like that too. Again, a clear and obvious call to violence, a general call to violence, which is how he's getting away with that, post the justified acquittal of Daniel Penny, and of course, he can't tell you what actually went down in the case. He has to say that Neely was just being loud, just like he was just hungry asking for food, and all these other different various myths, and yes, you should be rightfully pissed off by that guy's statement. And in fact, we are going to circle back Jen Psaki style to that statement, but I want to talk about some other things that should annoy you just as much, if not more, before we got to that particular point. Because if you guys will recall, immediately after this incident happened and people decided to declare Daniel Penny without any evidence an evil white racist filled with evil white racism, you had an attorney for the family talk about how Jordan Neely just wanted food, and for some reason it was on the subway passengers to help Jordan Neely.
No one on that train asked Jordan, what's wrong? How can I help you? He was choked to death instead. So for everybody saying, I've been on the train and I've been afraid before, and I can't tell you what I would have done in that situation, I'm going to tell you. Ask how you can help. Please. Don't attack. Don't choke. Don't kill. Don't take someone's life. Don't take someone's loved one from them because they're in a bad place. No one on that train said, you started out by saying, I'm hungry. I need food. I'm done with it. I don't know where to get food. I don't care if I die. I don't care if I go to jail. I'm just done. No one said, here you are, sir. Let me meet your need or help you in a situation or give a word of encouragement. That's not what happened on that train.
Look, I have a lot of people in my audience who say that this was a good outcome for Jordan Neely. He was a menace to the city of New York. And while that second part is true, I fully reject the idea that this was an ideal outcome. This was a horrible outcome, not just for Daniel Penny, who ended up going through this ridiculous trial, but for Jordan Neely as well. Now, that doesn't mean that Daniel Penny was unjustified in any way, shape, or form in restraining Jordan Neely. He was threatening passengers on the train. We heard the testimony from those passengers saying that they've never felt so threatened in their entire lives, despite decades of riding the subway and witnessing multiple different crimes.
The whole train was freaked out. He was either gonna pull a gun, a knife, or
said, I'm willing to die. I'm willing to die.
On cross-examination of the prosecution's witnesses, the defense played police-sworn body camera video of their statements to responding officers about what happened when 30-year-old Jordan Neely entered an F train on May 1st, 2023.
He's scared to live in daylight out there.
That witness told the jury she's been riding the subway for over 50 years and has been threatened before, but this was the first time she said she was actually scared. She described Neely as resisting when Marine veteran Daniel Penny put Neely in a chokehold to restrain him.
Not a hard chokehold, just enough to secure him, and the guy
She testified she left to go to the conductor and then also pressed an intercom button in the station to see when police might arrive because it had been a while. She also said she went over to thank Penny after.
But the idea that the death of Neely is a good outcome from this particular case, I just have to reject on its face. Because what we end up forgetting in the fact that Daniel Penny's force was justified was that there were a bunch of different steps that happened before Jordan Neely got on that train that could have changed, could have been altered in order to lead to Jordan Neely getting the help that he actually needs. And because I know this to be true, it is one of the reasons why I'm so pissed off when I hear the attorney for the family say something so ridiculous and stupid, like the people on the train were obligated to take care of Jordan Neely, because in reality, the system failed Neely in multiple different ways, so did members of his family. And by the way, organizations like Black Lives Matter did absolutely nothing for Jordan Neely because they only care about Black lives when those lives are ended. But let's get into Jordan Neely's mental health history because I think it's absolutely crucial, because we actually had a very sympathetic justice system towards Mr. Neely. You guys have heard about multiple violent instances that he had when he punched an old woman in the face, broke her nose and her eye socket, caused her major damage. Well, Jordan Neely actually received a plea deal in relation to that case. He was going to get some of that restorative justice, and as a part of that restorative justice, Jordan Neely, who was homeless and mentally ill, was going to be provided shelter and mental health treatment. And of course, this is well documented from the courtroom. Let's go over it so you guys can see it. And I'm going to tell you something else about this that should really anger you. Months before Neely stepped onto that train, he pled guilty on February 9th in a carefully planned strategy between the city and his lawyers to allow him to get treatment and stay out of prison. He was to go from court to live at a treatment facility in the Bronx and stay clean for 15 months. In return, Neely was actually going to have his conviction reduced, and he promised that he would take his medication and to avoid drugs and to not leave the facility. This was described by the prosecutor as a wonderful opportunity for him to turn things around, and how glad they were to give it to him, and Neely thanked them so much for this opportunity. But 13 days later, he abandoned the facility and a warrant was issued for his arrest. Now look, I've told you guys repeatedly that Jordan Neely was a paranoid schizophrenic, and obviously that is a very severe condition that warrants treatment, but here you had a perfect opportunity in order to deliver him that treatment. However, even though he was ordered and he agreed to stay in this facility and agreed to take his medication, there was obviously not the force mechanism required in order to hold him captive in that place in order for him to get the treatment that he desperately needed. So right here, you have a failure of the system. And by the way, that warrant was the same warrant that he had attached to his name on the day that he died. So this was relatively recently, and this facility was only able to keep him there for 13 days as an alternative to prison. And now I said, if the criminal justice system or the mental health system did their job, Jordan Neely would not have been on that train in the first place. And this is a perfect example of that. They went with the restorative justice route, but they didn't confine him. They didn't compel him to take the treatment beyond the threat of, if you don't, you'll go to prison, rather than just forcing him into the treatment in the first place, requiring him to stay, restricting his ability through barriers, through doors, through locks, the things that we have in prison, to leave voluntarily. They said he shouldn't leave, but guess what? He was allowed to walk right out the door, and that is a major problem, and a major problem that has nothing to do with Daniel Penny. This is one of the most absurd things about this trial, about all these different people talking about how he was hungry, he was homeless, he was poor, he was mentally ill, and all that nonsense, as if Daniel Penny is meant to solve those issues for Jordan Neely. No, the criminal justice system is meant to solve the issues of violent people on the streets. They proposed a solution, but it didn't have an adequate enforcement mechanism in order to keep him in captivity, whatever form that should have taken. Whether you believe he should have went to prison or you believe he should have been confined to this facility, obviously telling him that he's going to live there and making him promise not to leave was not a good incentive in order for him to stay there. And you know why? Because he was a paranoid schizophrenic. He was somebody that was quite literally not reasonable.
I just want to say, I miss my son. My son didn't have to go through this. I didn't have to go through this either. It hurts. Really, really hurts. What are we gonna do, people? What's gonna happen to us now? I had enough of this. The system is rigged. Come on, people. Let's do something about this.
So that man right there who says he missed Jordan Neely, he cared about him, he just wants to see him, and he's so sad about his son's death, describes himself, and the media describes him, as Jordan Neely's father. Now, I normally on this channel do not go after the person who died's family members, because even when they say irrational things, even when they say incorrect things, I think that can largely be attributed to the love that they have for the relative that they just lost. And I think it is good for society overall for us to give people grace to grieve even when they're expressing irrational or untrue things. However, I'm going to make an exception for this particular case because this man was not in Jordan Neely's life. And to be clear, I'm not saying that after Jordan Neely's schizophrenia got completely out of hand, this man couldn't deal with it, so tragically Jordan Neely walked out of the house and he ended up languishing on the streets. No, he abandoned Jordan Neely years before that, decades before that, if we're being perfectly honest. He hasn't been in his life reportedly since Neely was 8 years old, and because of that, Jordan Neely's mother ended up in an abusive relationship with a boyfriend that not only abused her, but abused Jordan Neely. Now, I know some of you are quite skeptical of man-on-woman abuse claims, and I totally understand that skepticism, but to be clear, it is well documented. Jordan Neely has been sent to foster care multiple different times. He has shown up with bruises. The mom has shown up with bruises. And oh yeah, when Jordan Neely was 14 years old, the body of the mother was found in a suitcase because that boyfriend murdered his mother. That abusive man killed her. And you know what happened to Jordan Neely after that? He went into foster care, not with the father that loves him oh so much. And in foster care, he wasn't treated particularly well. Now, you guys may know this, but I'm going to inform you of this. If you don't, the father, who wasn't in his life throughout the course of his life, who essentially surrendered his son to an abusive person who killed the mother of his child and didn't take him in after the fact, has decided to sue Daniel Penny for millions of dollars. In fact, his complaint is actually such a high dollar amount that it can't even be adjudicated by the regular base level courts in the city of New York. It is above their pay grade, literally, because this man wants to get paid. And if you guys will recall, Daniel Penny ended up raising a bunch of money for his legal defense from donations across the country from people who saw that he was getting railroaded by the justice system and wanted to fight back. So this man wants his piece of the pie. And there's something that I find to be insanely disgusting about abandoning your mentally ill son and then trying to cash in on his death. Something about how this man didn't give a damn to invest in Jordan Neely's life, but he's decided that it's his right to profit off of his death really gets under my skin. It really pisses me off, and it should piss all of you off as well. Again, Jordan Neely's life was tragic. There were multiple different points where you could have intervened, where you could have done something, but none of these people cared about him until after he was dead. None of these people wanted to help him throughout the course of his life, but they're damn sure comfortable cashing in on his death, and it is pure unfiltered evil for them to do so, and it needs to be called out. Again, all of these different people that are lined up in front of the courthouse didn't give a damn about Jordan Neely when he was alive. All of these people in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and all these different district attorney's offices that could have intervened to help Jordan Neely are mad that Daniel Penny intervened in order to help other people and have decided to throw all of their failures and all of the shame that they should feel on this one man who stepped up and demand, again, that he and other people in the subway do the things that they refused to do during his life. And that brings us to Black Lives Matter.
They will not find a white man guilty of killing a black man in modern day America. This is no different than Jim Crow. This looks like a picture out of the picture book when you look at that anonymous jury. We have baby boomers who were there doing Jim Crow on this jury. We have young people who are looking at Daniel Penny as a hero. And what America is a hero, a killer. He didn't give a crap about Jordan. The medical examiner said Jordan turned purple. Yes, black people can turn purple when they're denied oxygen. Every lab report showed he died of asphyxiation. And that doesn't matter because they want to spare a white man the penalty of his crimes. America has not changed, and I hate to say it, it may never change. And people who keep asking, are we going to riot? Are we going to protest? Is that what's needed? Do glass have to break? Do cars have to burn for a black man to get justice in America? We can't show up with peace. We can't show up with facts. We can't show up with evidence and witness after witness. You give us nothing. And then you ask us to love this country. America hates black people, and we see it from that jury pool.
A black man was lynched, and his name was Jordan Neely.
For them to go on national television and talk about rioting after the manslaughter charge was dismissed at the whim of the prosecutor who was trying to secure a compromise guilty verdict on behalf of them and their activists is absurd. It's disgusting. It's ridiculous. For them to talk about organizing and getting the community together and not going out and marching and have them discuss anything but actually being in the lives of your own damn children, not abandoning your kids to the streets and expecting other people to be responsible for them. Disgusting.
I'm tired. I know you're looking for us to be like, oh, go and march. Go and march. No. This weekend, I want you to hold a community event everywhere from the Bronx to Houston to Seattle to Florida. Black people hold community events and talk about what you need.
And for this race hustler, this buffoon, this absolute doofus, to stand next to Jordan Neely's father, to stand next to other family members who didn't want to deal with them and talk about how we need to get together and form our own vigilantes so that we can murder white people at will, because then maybe people will understand, is shameful, ridiculous, and disgusting in every possible way. As if black people committing more crimes is the solution to anything.
There is no love for black people. There is no love in the system. How can you make a moral appeal to a people that have no moral code? How can you preach love to racists? That got Dr. King killed. How can you promote love to a nation that is built on theft and genocide?
That's right.
What we preach is unity. Black unity. Stop begging this system to justify our lives. Stop begging this system for justice. When things happen to you, you step up and defend yourself. Just like everybody else seeks justice on their own, just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud? How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Right.
Again, if Jordan Neely was ever really held accountable for any of the serious crimes that he committed, he would have never been on that train in the first place. He would have either been in jail or been in prison, or guess what? Been forced to go to a mental health treatment facility that he can't walk away from at the drop of a hat whenever his mental illness starts acting up and he decides that he needs to be somewhere else. But this guy doesn't want to talk about any of this. He wants to blame Daniel Penny, blame the white guy, blame the guy who ended up having to deal with the results of the failures of all those black people that are surrounding him, as if he was the cause, as if he was the problem. No, absolutely not. Those people were the problem. His father was the problem. His other family members that abandoned him were the problem. And the lack of community among black New Yorkers surrounding him, that was also the problem. So do your little meetings, do your marches, talk all your nonsense, talk all your trash, but we all know what happened. I'm going to set the record straight. I'm going to call out your nonsense. And I don't want anybody to give them a dime under the mistaken impression that those guys are in it for anything other than enriching themselves. Black Lives Matter is basically dead in the United States of America. All their elected officials are crashing and burning around us, and this guy is reaching out for one last grift, one last race hustle, and that is Jordan Neely. He doesn't give a damn about him. He doesn't give a damn about Black Lives. Again, if Black Lives Matter cared about Black lives, maybe they would do something for them while they're still alive and not after they die and there's money to be made. But you know what? Those those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute nonsense surrounding the Jordan Neely case. Till next time.